became a councillor?
Well, I returned back to council because I was a councillor in 85 to 87 when I was one of that lots, as they call it, the surcharge.
So you were one of the 47?
Yes.
Yes.
49.
Now, 49.
Yeah,
right. Now, for anybody who doesn't remember that was when, a little bit like what's going on in America now, when the council here, the Labour Council here, couldn't agree. Well, it was a rate support grant that was reduced by the Tory government, wasn't it? Isn't that what happened? And then you couldn't agree a council rate, and then you had to sort of go around, and people were not going to be paid; they had to be sacked and all that. How did that work, Roy? What happened there?
I mean, it's like most things. It's people now think it's like a myth that build up. But what it was a late setting of the council tax at that time, and because it was a week late, the Conservative government of the day decided that the council had lost money. And so they found a way to surcharge. But the council were never in a position that they didn't put a rate. They put a rate, it was a recognised rate, but they said it was a late one. Right. So they wanted an excuse to surcharge, and eventually they found one.
And you couldn't pay the surcharge?
No, the surcharge was actually paid off by the Labour group, and as by Dave, it wasn't paid up by those 49 councillors, it was paid by trade unions and Labour members throughout the country.
Yeah. And many donations.
It was 340, and we've honest, 342,000 it worked out at eventually. When the
but why was it? I mean, we'll just do this briefly, but come back to it after. Why was it that? I mean, Neil Kinnock's speech, he said you can't have the spectacle of a Labour council going around giving redundancy notices by taxi. Why did that happen?
That was because at that point, and as it is today, councils, as national government does, has to borrow to survive and then to pay back.
Yeah.
And at that point, the banks had refused to give Liverpool any more of its budget, and therefore Liverpool, they were demanding we sack 10,000 people.
I see.
So we sent the redundancy notices out. When we got the money, we withdrew them all back. So not one person was ever made redundant.
No, I understand that. But they got you on that, didn't they?
No, that wasn't it. That has nothing to do with it.
No.
It was basically because they said it was a late setting of a rate.
Right.
We made it 1 week later. I mean, the story itself is complicated, but it was a stitch up. And they got
it was to make you look bad, wasn't it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, they wanted a confrontation with basically the hard left, didn't they? What they perceived as being the hard left.
Well, they needed at that point. Don't forget that it was only just then we'd been at this for something like 2 years. The miners' strike had been on for 12 months.
Yeah.
They couldn't look at local government because it wasn't just Liverpool; it was across the country and the miners. So basically, they waited. Done in the miners, then turned to local government, and Liverpool and Lambeth were the two councils they chose because of late rates.
They picked their mark, didn't they?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Okay, so let's do the newspapers. Do you want to do the newspaper jingle, Dave?
We'll do our little jingle.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back up, and when you're ready, Brenda, do you want to cover the first?
Mine is just really, I mean, this is very appropriate when we've got these sort of stalwarts of the Labour Party movement, is the under 25s that are going to either be out without benefits or the long-term employed who are going to have to, well, they say whether it ever happens or not, go in every day. I mean, what do you think
back to when unions were formed, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. It harks back to the days where there was the deserving poor and the undeserving poor, certainly.
Yes. I think it's outrageous. I mean, I think any fair-minded person would do, especially to put an arbitrary age limit of 25 on it. I mean, look, the Conservative government go on about strengthening family life, marriage as an institution. Well, lots of people marry young. So a young person, say with a couple of kids, been working since you were 16, you suddenly get made redundant.
Yeah.
And they're going to say you can't get any benefits.
I suppose their thinking is, and I'm being devil's advocate here, is that those under 25 won't have paid much in. I guess that's what their thinking is. So, it's all about either work or training, or you're doing something, you're not just sitting at home on benefits.
Yeah, but if it's on contribution to lumber, then I can understand that, but it has never been the way of the welfare state of what you pay in, you get out. That has never been a basis, because when we think about it, coming to an age now where an awful lot of women who quite clearly stayed at home, to look after children, to make the communities what they are, didn't pay into the national insurance benefit. Are we going to say they don't deserve it? Of course we're not, because they contributed. So this day and age, we're looking, me and Dave, our age, we're looking forward to these 25-year-olds being able to work to pay our contribution for the future, as we all are.
Exactly right.
If we've got a benefit, which is at the moment an unemployment benefit, the government's saying this is a minimum. And yet, if you look around the city, a great deal of the unemployment stores have been shut down. Very, very few of them are left. That means £2 a day, £2 per journey on the bus.
Yeah.
So we can have somebody who's on the minimum rate now having to pay
£25 a week. Yeah.
Minimum a week
right.
on top of everything else. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying, I think even from the Labour Party point of view, we disagree that people shouldn't work. People should work if they can. If you can work, you should. But go around. Go to the unemployment. There is no jobs. No. I'm sick and tired of the whole aspect of the way they talk. There is a huge difference between Liverpool and a place like Poole or Bournemouth down south, where there are lots of jobs. This part of the country, there isn't any. But again, it's this division of our country, and they're happy to
the Tories have it's divide and rule. I mean,
precisely,
they've got a template there. They must have used it for 200 years. I mean, it's never changed. It's just as it is, isn't it? Yep. And I mean, it just shows you this week with the obnoxious Daily Mail article that was there, just how far they'll go to create problems. They must be worried if they're doing that to Ed Miliband and his father. Very worried that he's gaining traction with the going towards the next election. But what concerns me is, and you do see this on blogs as well, is the people, not only that buy into those attitudes of the Daily Mail, but also believe in it. You know, you see it on blogs, they go, well, I'm not going to, I'm here at 6:30 in the morning, I'm on a train, why should these people, guess it, why am I paying my taxes? End of. They don't look at the other things like you would look at, a woman staying at home or a young person not being able to get a job. They don't see that. And as you say, it's probably the people down south who are in that protected environment that don't want to understand what's going on.
Yes. Plus, it's as logical. I mean, as you know, from an insurance background years ago when I was working, I mean, it's like people saying, well, why should I pay an insurance premium? My house has never burned down. And then, oops, it happens to burn down the next day. These people who are slagging off the unemployed, they could quite easily be unemployed themselves.
They don't know. I mean, we were talking here about, I don't know whether you ever watched Paul O'Grady's show when you went to the working class. Did you watch that? And the one thing that's illuminated current attitudes to me, or what can be in young people's minds, was he went into a Glaswegian office to talk to call centre people, and they'd all been through, I would imagine, and certainly he indicated, they'd all been through, they were in their 20s, all been through the comprehensive system, went coming from wonderful backgrounds, but probably the parents had worked, or they'd been in social housing, or they'd had their own homes. And he said to them, and they're probably on about 20, 25 grand a year, do you consider yourself working class? And they looked at him as if he'd come down from the planet Zog. What's working class? Now that's what you're contending with, see. It's all commercialised now, isn't it?
Well, the aspirations of being better than
saying, well, I care about that person because they haven't got a job. Those people in that office were only concerned about themselves. That's the difference. About having a job. They didn't have that community working class thing going. But they came from a working class background, which is strange. Do
you think perhaps he was a bit selective in the people he spoke to? I'd like to think that wasn't completely the attitude of...
Yeah, I think it's just where you live sometimes, really. So what have you got, Dave? Have you got anything?
Well, what was I looking at? There were several things I was looking at. I misplaced the one that was near to my heart because I was doing some defib training last night, and there was one about defibrillators, and I'm rapidly searching for it. Got it. The council to fit heart machines. Life-saving defibrillators are to be installed in the most heavily used centres run by St Helens Council. The Cabinet has given the go-ahead to install machines at a number of locations in the town, including the main library. The scheme is being run in partnership with North West Ambulance, who will purchase and maintain the equipment. Now we could get onto the costing to the NHS on this, and provide training for their use. The Oliver King Foundation, set up in memory of 12-year-old Oliver, who died from sudden arrhythmic death syndrome, or SADS, while swimming in the pool at King David School in Chilwell in 2011, has been fighting to get defibrillators which give the heart an electric shock, and some cardiac arrest cases installed in public buildings. Now, as I said, we were talking about this before the show, where I did cardio training last night because of I actually work for one of the NHS organisations. And it was a little bit different from the original training that we got, because the machines we were using were training machines. So you had somebody standing behind you with a remote control, changing the parameters of the exercise. I think this is a great idea. Hopefully it will save some lives. But the other side of it is the cost of training somebody to use it. What do you guys think? Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think it's...
Well, I've actually been trained on one of them, and it is not very hard. They are very simple to use, and that is the idea of the defibrillator machine. It is that instantaneous concept of keeping someone alive whilst, let's be honest,
the ambulance
gets there.
Yeah, that is.
And when they were getting produced and sent around the council, the city council, because we put them in a lot of places, is we went as councillors, and they are very, very easy to use. Very simple. It isn't a 3-week course. It's done very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And that was the idea of them. They are this instantaneous lifesaver, which work, tell you what to do, how to do it.
Well, that's it. The machine will tell you what to do.
Down there,
yeah.
In nice colours, colour coded, even for the rest of us. So, great idea. Fabulous. If they just save one life, then at the end of the day, no matter how much they cost, they're definitely worth their money.
What we were told, though, is that there tends to be this apathetic attitude about the cost of the machines, because you're talking an average of about £800 per machine, and the people in these buildings, or in some cases the shops, they can't sort of justify the expense of that machine. But when somebody does have a heart attack on their premises and they've not got the equipment, they get so much negative publicity, they start thinking, well, we should have invested in it. And I think this campaign's great, because it's pointing out to people, close the gate before the horse bolts. And as I say, we have to be kept up to date on this, and the latest machines are, for training, are great.
I think it's a good thing to have them everywhere. The only thing is what you're saying. When it was first mooted by the Oliver King Foundation, it was to go into primary schools, wasn't it? To go into schools, and of course, because I remember going on a blog and saying, well, what about older people? How are we going to access that? The school's closed, and then because it should be for, there should be something.
It
for
has
everybody.
been extended.
And then it was extended.
Well extended.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, organisations, sports centres have them, etc. So I think you find more often than not, community centres, etc. They all have them in, because contrary to what it used to be like, as they've just said, very easy to use. They're there, and they're very, very easy.
It's just a big woof, isn't it? Sort of,
well, actually, they're not. They're sticky pads. You follow the diagram, stick the pads on the person. You're taught in you train in CPR anyway, because you have to start off with a CPR while preparing it, and you stick the pads on the person, follow the instructions, and the machine will talk you through the process. It will even tell you to stand back so you don't get shocked yourself.
It's a good thing, because if you can get there, it's a bit like taking an aspirin. I was reading an article the other day that you should always have, as an older person, a glass of water. Now, the water is for hydration, and an aspirin by your bed. Because if usually, not obviously, but usually, if you have, say, an event, a heart event, it's usually because of a clot. So if you take the aspirin, and it can be a paediatric dose, an average aspirin size is 300 milligram. So paediatric dose, child's dose, is 0.75. So it's only a small amount, but it still have a blood thinning effect. You should if you feel that, take it, because that will help to save your life, because you're going to break that blood clot down before you can get to the A&E or somebody can get to you. And you should always drink water as well, not get yourself dehydrated as an older person.
That's so simple, isn't it? But,
it is simple.
Yeah, I would never have thought about it until you mentioned it now.
Yeah.
But,
there was rules, and it's so simple. Always have a drink before you go to bed, even if you think to yourself, particularly men do, don't they? I'm going to have to get up in the night. Doesn't matter. You're hydrating your body, and it can be